that I had briefly showed you. This was something that I had made a video for a while back, but I didn't do this bottom section, so I was going to do that with you, but for time purposes, let's just get rolling. This is going to be the assignment that I want to make sure you guys get done in class today before you leave, because you're going to need the calculator for it, and so that's one reason why I decided we better just get to going. All right, first of all, before we begin, I want to just make sure that everybody clears their RAM, clears their memory on their calculator, especially if this is one of my afternoon classes, because the other classes will have been putting data in. So remember, you just hit the buttons second plus 712. Second plus 712. Okay. So this is the paper that I need all of you to have right now. And I'm just going to go through a few of these with you, and then the rest of the class I'm going to have you work on them. That way you have the calculator and you can do it in class and get them done. Okay, we are trying to figure out if these are linear, quadratic, exponential, or neither. And then once we figure that out, we're going to go ahead and we're going to write the equation for what we have. All right, so first thing I look for, I look to see if my x's all go up by 1, and they do. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to check my first differences. How do you get from 1 to 3? Up 2. How do you get from 3 to 5? Up 2. How do you get from 5 to 7? Up 2. How do you get from 7 to 9? Up 2. Okay, these are my first differences, and because my first differences are the same, then I know that this is linear. So if your x's all go up by 1 and your first differences are the same, that's how we know that it's linear. Now I'm going to write an equation. And I could write an equation by hand. I might show you how to do that in just a second, but right now we're going to do this in the calculator with the stat button. So I've showed you how to do this several times. Hopefully it's not too difficult for you now. I'm going to go to the button that says Stat. So everybody hit the button that says Stat. I want to put in data, so I'm going to edit. List 1 are my x's, and my x's are 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4. List 2 are for my y's, and my y's are 1, 3, 5, 7, and 9. So once you have your x's and your y's in, we're going to hit stat again, and I want to go over to calculate. So I arrow over to calculate. Because we said that this was linear, I'm going to go to number 4, lin reg. This is the one that we've done in this class. We haven't done any others. So I'm going to go to number 4, lin reg. I'm going to hit enter. And typically, our linear equations, we write them in the form y equals mx plus b, but your calculator uses ax plus b for some reason. So when I write my equation, I'm going to recopy the y equals. It says the a is a 2, so I'm going to put a 2 where the a is. I'm going to recopy the x, and then the b is a positive 1, so I put plus 1. And that's the equation that represents the data in this table. Now, I could have done this by hand. I know my slope is 2, and so that's what you see in front of the x, and this is the y-intercept, so that's why we have a 1 back there. So if I had to write it by hand, then that's a real easy way to do it. Okay, I'm going to skip down to number 3. So let's look at number 3. First I look to see, do my x's all go up by 1? Yes. Now let's check our first differences. How do we get from 3 to 6? Up 3. How do we get from 6 to 12? Up 6. How do we get from 12 to 24? Up 12. How do we get from 24 to 48? Up 24. Is this linear? No. My first differences are not the same. Now I'm going to check to see if it's quadratic. So I'm going to check my second differences. How do you get from 3 to 6? Up 3. How do you get from 6 to 12? Up 6. How do you get from 12 to 24? Up 12. Since my second differences aren't the same, then it's not quadratic. So it's either exponential or it's neither. So to know if it's exponential, this is when I check my ratios. So I start with this y, 6, and I divide by this y, 3. And what's 6 divided by 3? 2. Then I go to this y, 12, and I divide by the y before it, 6. And what's 12 divided by 6? 2. Let's do the others in our head. 24 divided by 12? 2. 48 divided by 24? 2. So this one is exponential. If you get the same ratio the whole way through, then that's when we know it's exponential. And the ratio that we get is called our growth factor. Our table is growing by 2's. It's doubling. And you can see that. If you double 3, you get 6. If you double 6, you get 12. If you double 12, you get 24. So this is our growth factor, and it means that the y's are doubling, which is in fact what's happening. Okay, now I'm going to make my calculator write the equation, and then I'll remind you how you could do it by hand if you needed to. So let's go to Stat again, and I'm going to put in my data. So I want to edit my list 1, same thing, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, so I'm good there. List 2, those are for your y's, so 3, 6, 12, 24, and 48. So 3, 6, 12, 24, 48. Then go back to Stat. I want my calculator to calculate something, so I arrow over to Calculate. And because it's exponential, I won't use 4 this time. I won't use 5 because it's not quadratic, so I keep on going down. And there it is. Oops. Sorry, I accidentally got off of that. So right here, you can see it. It's the 0, exponential reg. So that's the one I want. Hit enter again. And we talked about this equation a while back. Y equals AB raised to the x. So I'm going to recopy the y equals. The calculator says A is a 3, so I'm going to put a 3 where the A is. I'm going to put parentheses around my B, and it says B is a 2, and then I recopy the x. Now, if I had to do this by hand, 2 is the B, that's the growth factor. That's the ratio that you get when you take your y and divide by the y in front of it. Y, divide by the y in front of it. And then the A is the initial amount, and the initial amount is 3. That's what you start with. Okay, let's look at number 4. Number 4. First I look to see, do my x's all go up by 1? Yes. Now let's check for our first differences. How do you get from 0 to 1? Up 1. How do you get from 1 to 4? Up 3. How do you get from 4 to 9? Up 5. How do you get from 9 to 16? Up 7. So is it linear? Nope. My first differences aren't the same. Now let's check our second differences. How do you get from 1 to 3? Up 2. How do you get from 3 to 5? Up 2. How do you get from 5 to 7? Up 2. Ah, bing, 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 bing. Since my second differences are the same, then this is quadratic. So when your second differences are the same, then you have found yourself a quadratic equation. Okay, now I'm going to make the calculator do all my work. So I'm going to go to the Stat button. I want to put in data, so I want to edit. List 1 is fine. I still have 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. List 2, I need to change to my y's, which are 0, 1, 4, 9, and 16. Okay, I go back to Stat. I want to calculate, so I go over to Calculate. And which one do you think I want? I want number 5, quad reg, because we said that this was quadratic. So number 5 is what I want. Enter, enter again. And the calculator gives us our standard form for quadratics. You guys have seen this before. Y equals ax squared plus bx plus c. So that should look familiar to you from the quadratic formula and also when we were learning how to factor. Okay, a is 1, so I'm going to put a 1 where the a is, recopy the x squared. Now because b is 0, it would be plus 0x, but that's just 0. And because c is 0, it'd be plus 0, but that's just 0. So this is actually all I need right here. But if my b was something else and my c was something else, I'd keep on going with my equation. Okay, so there is an example of each kind. So if your first differences are the same, it's linear, and you'll use linreg. If your second differences are the same, it's quadratic, and you'll use quadreg. And if your first differences aren't the same, your second differences aren't the same, but your ratios are the same, of this y divided by the y in front of it, this y divided by the y in front of it, if the ratios are the same, then that's when it's exponential, and I would use exponential reg in the calculator. Okay, your assignment is to finish this worksheet. So I'm hoping that you're able to do that during class time. If not, we'll play it by ear tomorrow. But I want you to use the rest of your time wisely while you have your calculator, and you can actually do these on the calculator here at school. So please finish up class trying to do the rest of this worksheet. And there is a backside, so don't forget about the back. Thank you. I'll see you tomorrow. I missed you. Smiley face.